Hello, everyone. You're listening to Truthcatradio at truthcatradio.com. The current time is 7:58 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's East Coast, USA. My name is Richard Kary, and this is Beyond the Matrix. Today, we are going to have back with us once again Harry Hubbard, and Harry is going to be discussing a lot of interesting facts that contradict some of the official information, actually, that you've heard about both Quetzalcoatl and the Mayan calendar, among related topics that we'll get into a little bit here in just a few moments. I did just want to take a moment first to thank everyone for tuning in and ask if you could to please support our station. Now, we don't accept any corporate advertising whatsoever. We're not monetizing. All our archives are free. So if you can, please help out and support us to just help keep everything going here. You know, we have a lot of great hosts and shows for you, a lot of great topics and guests. But, you know, we can't keep that going without continuing to, have your support fund that in general. So please, we have a support page, as I said, and PayPal is accepted. It's a very safe, convenient way for a lot of people. They like to use PayPal a lot these days. So please go to our support page, give a donation through PayPal. Any amount would help. And, we would really appreciate it to keep everything running here. If anyone out there would like to call in tonight, ask us any questions or anything like that, the call-in number is going to be 714-598-3125. Again, that number 714-598-3125. If you do call in, please be sure to turn off your radio and don't say anything when in the call-in queue, and I'll just verbally invite you by your area code. And once again, please help out and support the station with whatever you can. Thank you. Now, hello, Harry. Are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Hi. Well, yeah. Thank you for being with us again today.
You're welcome. You're quite welcome.
Yeah. No. For those listeners who haven't caught Harry's previous guest appearance here on Beyond the Matrix, I would just like to point out Harry is a self-educated scholar whose research and interests include history, maps, coins, archaeology, anthropology, antiques, geology, linguistics, electricity, music, writing, and business. An avid bibliophile, he has been president of Ptolemy Productions, Inc., Alexander Helios, Inc., Cybertech Systems, Inc., and Lazeria, Inc. He has an extensive ancient map collection, has authored his Native American Linguistics Guide, and several nonfiction books, reports, and articles. And Harry has written, arranged, directed, and produced over 20 videos for Alexander Helios, Inc. And as I said, we're discussing Quetzalcoatl and aspects of the Mayan calendar. Now, Harry, you've had a lot of interesting information come up in your research on these topics. Is that right?
Yes, and sometimes they just sit on the burner for a while, and I just get inspired to put it out there. And the same thing with this Quetzalcoatl video. It was there, and I wanted to do it. I've wanted to do it for a long time, and so I put it all together, and I had all the materials here to do it with. And so I started in on it, and once I got a new set of Catholic encyclopedias, that was the cream on top. I was able from that to just put together this incredible presentation, and plus my sources from the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, on and on.
Well, that's excellent. And I think a lot of people, these days with the internet and everything, a lot of people don't appreciate, I think, the value of actual book collections, encyclopedias and the like, and from various time periods. I mean, but these forms of information, they can't be altered after the fact. Someone can come in later on for their own agenda and change little thing here and there. And isn't that one important thing about these texts when you go to them for references?
Correct. You have to start somewhere with a solid foundation. You can't just pull things out of the air and make it up as you go. I can't do that. A lot of people do, but I can't do that. I like to prove what I'm saying, and there's a lot of guys out there that they can't prove anything they're saying. They're just just out there babbling from one thing to the other, which is a lot of the case concerning Quetzalcoatl and the alleged Mayan calendar, which we're going to get into.
But your ancient map collection and your book collection is quite amazing. I mean, just from your videos, I was admiring, just what I've been able to see from that alone. So maybe you could, just enlighten the listeners just for, as to what sources. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, I'm an avid reader. And I always read pretty fast, but then after I got to spend some time with Eustace Mullins, he taught me how to really increase my speed reading, and he had me a couple of pointers, and it worked. It worked. His theory worked, and then you transfer that same method into other things, and you have to develop it. I'm not actually a speed reader, but I read extremely fast, probably about 4,800 words a minute, which means I can read an encyclopedia in a couple of days or so.
Right. Yeah. No, I can imagine. Yeah. No, that is pretty impressive. And yeah, you've recently acquired some of the encyclopedia sets that aided in this research. What year?
I had when I lived in Florida and in some other places. I generally lived close to a Catholic high school or seminary or college or somewhere that had copies of the Catholic Encyclopedia. Well, out here in the middle of nowhere, no one around here has one accessible. So I waited till I found one online for like $60, and I jumped on it, and it's awesome. I love the Catholic Encyclopedia. I love the Encyclopedia Judaica, Britannicas. I love all my encyclopedia sets. And it was appropriate to use the Catholic Encyclopedia. It's printed in 1967 to put together this entire Quetzalcoatl thing. I couldn't have done it without the infusion of the Catholic Encyclopedia concerning all these friars that nobody's ever heard of, and a couple people have heard of, but as the Catholic chroniclers documented what they knew, and then it was carried forth in the Catholic archives, and then it came out in 67 with the Catholic Encyclopedia. It's just a wonderful, wonderful set of books.
And then regarding Quetzalcoatl and in general, this led in research to just looking at the whole way Mexico's history has been written. It turns out, when I was checking out your video, I mean that basically seems to be what's unraveling here, right? Is that, I mean, a lot of things have been altered.
Correct. And everything, even the Mexican flag, is a total farce. It's got the Quetzalcoatl bird standing on a cactus, and it came out of Mexico City, and there never were any cactuses in Mexico City, and an eagle can't stand on a cactus. I mean, on a saguaro, big cactus. I don't know, but just a small birds that can stand on cactuses. But yeah, the whole thing is a sham, and I proved that in the video. And then there's other things that I've added to it just from putting up the books and checking stuff out as I finished everything that I could have included, but the video was already over 2 hours long, and there was a lot of things that I cut to make it to shorten it down, which I have done with several of my other videos too. I have to take big portions of it out just because it just makes the video too long. And that's one of the things I had to do here with Quetzalcoatl. And I call it searching for Quetzalcoatl. And I go back through the books and we start to find Quetzalcoatl in these old books.
Yes, I can understand your frustration there. I mean, when someone's really getting into their research, you don't really want to have to omit anything. But I mean, you're also keeping in mind the length related to the average listener or viewer, and not everyone may have quite as long an attention span for a given subject. And yeah, I mean, well, it's still over 2 hours though, and it's packed with information. I must say myself. Now this history, it seems like from what you point out in the video, it seems it was altered by the priests, right? I mean, this was religiously motivated and politically motivated, you could say, right?
Oh yeah, it was created by the friars, the priests, the padres, the Franciscans, the Dominicans, and the Jesuits. They created it. They created every aspect of Mexican history as we know it. Everything from top to bottom. And that's just the way it is. I guess Mexican history at that time, was just everybody eating each other and sacrificing people all day long, all night long, and the Catholics were worried about their own heads, so they did what they could. They went in under the spirit of the Lord, divine majesty of Jesus and the Virgin Mary, and they went in and pretty much just decimated all of the chiefs, the priests, and everything having to do with the Aztec culture, and then they just started putting it back together as they saw fit. And they included Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl was like their Jesus figure.
Yes, and I mean, it seems like, well, I mean, quite a ways back, you had postulated, on whether or not Quetzalcoatl had been completely fabricated by Jesuit authors, but at this point, it seems you're revising where the current theory then would be that the myth or person named Quetzalcoatl was greatly embellished by these Jesuit authors, and I mean this was for the purpose of them spreading. Well, I mean they were spreading Christianity as a means of conquering the people. That's basically what it came down to, right?
Well, they were spreading Catholicism, and there's a stretch there between Catholicism and Christianity. It is a style of Christianity, and I might want to add that I dedicated this film to my father because my father had his doubts. He didn't have all the pieces. He didn't put it all together, but to him, he was the first to bust the Quetzalcoatl issue. But he never had a chance to put it all together, and he never would have wanted to. He just had question about it, and he put that on me. Hey, there's something here that's not right. I don't buy into it, but I've got some of these books that conflict each other and of what they're saying. And he after he passed away, I got all his books, and there were lines in there, and he had some of my books too that he had underlined in. And I started going through them, and right there it was, and I had everything together. I once I had my laser sights on a Catholic encyclopedia set. I was into it. I wanted to do this Quetzalcoatl video, and it wasn't a nightmare or anything. It was just a lot of reading and taking notes.
Mm-hmm. And I. Well, what some of these texts that you show in your video postulate that you seem to be confirming then is that it wasn't just a myth. Quetzalcoatl was a real flesh and blood priest king. Then isn't that right?
No, that's just what one of the more modern sources say. Quetzalcoatl is created out of thin air.
Okay.
He never existed.
All right,
a lot of at all.
Okay, so a lot of these references that make it sound like he was a real person doing real things. Those are like the one myth saying that he set himself on fire and his heart
Oh
rose
yeah.
into the heavens to become the morning star and all this. But I but I mean no
And that's
that uh-huh.
and let me say that I'm glad that you caught that and that you laughed, because I try to make it as humorous as possible. I'm dealing with subjects that are very, very deep, that take a really solid attention span. And when I can make something lively and crack somebody up when they read something, I show them something in a book and it's absolutely hilarious from every other book that I show them.
Right.
That to me is an accomplishment, because I try to keep humor in my presentations.
Well, excellent. Yeah, no, that definitely helps everyone to keep engaged and involved in learning about these things. So so um so I mean, okay, this was then Jesuit priests. Then that's what you're convinced as far as the rewriters of the history.
It was the Jesuits, and they were hand in hand with the Franciscans and the Dominicans. It's like they were all trying to outdo each other in pseudo facts and fake news or fake history. They were trying to outdo each other, and in so doing, or or attempting this, they disproved each other. So I want to point out there was a section in the presentation that I didn't cover due to the time factor, and that is the ancient city, ancient Mexico City, which was called Tenochtitlan, and it was uh, it was built on a man-made island out in the middle of a huge lake, Lake Texcoco, and they added to this what apparently was an island in the first place, and then created all these dikes and these dams, and there was a lot of years ago, 20 years ago, when I was first getting into Mexico. I was actually living on the border and worked down in Mexico, and I had all of my maps of Mexico on the wall and such, and a huge map of Lake Texcoco. And the scholars could not figure out how they manufactured this island here and out in the middle of the lake. And my theory on that is that all they would have to do is drain or put the lake drain at a lower level, and then build everything as they saw fit, and then plug the drain back up, and then just wait for a super atmospheric deluge like Hurricane Gilbert did in what that was 1990, I believe, or 1989, when Hurricane Gilbert went into Mexico and dumped like 23 inches of rain near the coastline. And they knew, the engineers there knew, that sooner or later a huge tropical storm was going to come and just deluge the entire area, and it would fill that lake up. So I believe that they constructed all this when the lake bed was either very, very low or actually even dry. And that's just my theory. And I didn't put that in the presentation because I was going to go into more of the topography and geography of Tenochtitlan and what we call ancient Mexico City, and I just didn't go that route. I said, well, I'll save it for later. So given that, let's say that you have an island out in the middle of this lake that's like what, 50 miles by 25 miles or so, like that, and you have an island, a huge island out there that's got an entire metropolis on it, and there's several causeways. There's miles and miles of causeways, and they had dikes and they had aqueducts. They brought in fresh water. All of their sewage went into one section of the water. They kept their gray water away from their dark water, and their fresh water from everything else. And where did they get the wood? How did they cook? My theory on that is that they didn't have. It's not like today where everybody has a stove and a kitchen and a fireplace to cook their food. I believe that it was mostly done out on the streets, and that they would have like huge bakeries, ovens, places where you would have cooks that would make the fires and cook the food and then serve it to other people for currency or for favors, whatever, I don't know. But it certainly wouldn't have been any way to have so much smoke and fires in a vast metropolis at that time, out in the middle of this lake with everybody cooking fires. I just don't see it. Where did the wood come from? I mean, did they have just constant trucks of logs coming in and day out? Remember, it's at 7,300 feet ASL, and there's not so as many trees that grow at that elevation as in the lower levels of down in the lowlands.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my theory of how they cooked and how they provided food for themselves. It's just a thought. It was just an afterthought.
Okay.
And go ahead.
Oh, well, no, I mean, okay, so I mean, the texts that try to just suggest that Quetzalcoatl did exist in some form. I mean, this is just originally comes from absolute thin air. Then, I mean, because the one part of the one text mentions that after Quetzalcoatl had left, and had the followers of some god of warriors, this other god, his worshippers, giver and taker of life, Tezcatlipoca, drove the priest king and his disciples out of Tula, and then he showed up in another society, made his way to Veracruz coast, at the same time shows up in Kukulkan.
Right.
No, Kukulkan Khan. I mean, who seems like the same person. I mean, Kukulkan Khan appears in this Chichen Itza area, and all of that's complete fabrication. Then you're saying it.
All of that, 100% is created by National Geographic, and that's what I prove. Is I even go back into National Geographic. I could have used several other National Geographics to push the story further off the deep end, but there's enough there. There's enough there for you to easily determine that National Geographic is 100% responsible for the way people see and feel and understand Quetzalcoatl of modern day times. And like Reader's Digest said in the 80s, there's no proof of any of it. There's no proof of anything that National Geographic says about Quetzalcoatl. And that's when I go back into Hernando Cortez, Bernal Diaz, and I'm sitting there going, okay, yeah, let's look at this, let's look at this. And even before World War II, in the Encyclopedia Britannica, I show you Quetzalcoatl. He ain't there. He ain't there. He doesn't exist.
And then you also point out how over time they also gradually changed it a little more and a little more. I mean, a little later in time from first references to Quetzalcoatl, then it turns out it's depicted as a white man with a beard wearing strange dress, and then it's eventually identified.
Don't you love those beards?
Yeah, and then eventually they're identifying him with Saint Thomas. So how convenient.
Yeah. I love the beards. I love the beards. And then I show you in the Catholic Encyclopedia and some other pictures in the Catholic Encyclopedia and in National Geographic and Reader's Digest, I show you the pictures of Quetzalcoatl. And do any of them look anywhere near similar?
Not at all. No.
Not at all. Not at all. Some of them, it don't even look like a human. It looks just like a carved seal wearing a pajama cape or something. It's just ridiculous. And people love a lie. And modern day times, we have fake news. Well, the people who enjoy fake news, they also love pseudo people, fake people. Like, for instance, one of the most popular characters of our modern day time is Santa Claus. He's a pseudo person. He's a fake person. So Peter Cottontail, Mickey Mouse, these are all just fake. And Frankenstein, Dracula, werewolves. People love fake crap, and that's just where we're at in modern day times.
Well, yeah, and I did take note of this one quote in the one text that you point out in the video, because when you bring up Cortez, and this, was clearly focused on, also in that time period, influencing the natives to be accepting of the conquerors. Because we have this one line that in the one text you display, it states probably these late authors are also responsible for the story that he foretold, the coming of white men who should give the Indians a better government and religion. and then you have another part in there in a text you point out in the video. Aztecs saw Quetzalcoatl's prophecy fulfilled with the arrival of Cortez, and it's mentioning it. He arrived in cyclical time that would correspond, and then they were attacked by him just as this prophecy. So I mean, it's trying to say, okay, Quetzalcoatl told them that Cortez is to take them over, so be accepting of it, and that pretty much is the story there, right? I mean, it's just to convince the people at that time period, and then later on to preserve their own history of Mexico the way they want people to remember it.
Well, that's part of Cortez's timing. He timed it just right. And then when he heard the folklore, he's like, oh yeah, we'll just jump on that. And he calls over all the padres and priests and whatever. He goes, hey man, look, they got this and they got that. And then you have to understand also of how Moctezuma, which I go Moctezuma, but I can go Montezuma. It doesn't matter. He had, there's several different ways. Moctezuma, you can pronounce it a million different ways. Is that he was speaking Nahuatl to Doña Marina, who spoke Nahuatl and Yucatan. And then there was another Catholic friar there who spoke Spanish and Yucatan. So it's kind of like, okay, these guys here, they talk, then it's translated over here. It's just like Sacagawea, Sacagawea and all the confusion with the Frenchmen and the Shoshone and the Cheyenne and Lewis and Clark trying to communicate with the Native Americans. It was a nightmare. And how much of it got twisted in translation, we won't ever know, but I'm sure a lot did. And then when you come into the word Yucatan, and I show you what the meaning of the word Yucatan is in the Yucatan in what they call the Yucatan language, and Yucatan means I don't understand. So I believe that's how we get the Maya also, because they say, I believe it was in the Samuel Morrison document when he was writing about Christopher Columbus, that he stated that Christopher Columbus saw a boat go past him in the Caribbean somewhere of men dressed in tunics and pants. And he asked, who are you, in Spanish? Naturally, they didn't speak Spanish, but they go, Maya, Maya. And he go, oh, Maya. And it probably meant, I don't understand.
I see.
That's like you ask some people that don't speak English, Spanish, they go, no say. That means I don't understand, So and there was probably a lot of that, and such, and then even all the crap with the Mayan calendar and all the mysticism and the Mayan calendar predicts this date and that date. It's just all a bunch of bull crap. There never was a Mayan calendar, never ever was, and it was all from Mexico City, which was Aztec. It's which Mayan calendar are you talking about? The one printed in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and all these formulas and stuff. And my question would be to anybody who professes to know the Mayan calendar and have studied a lot of this stuff online with modern books and whatever. My question to them first would be this: before 1790, what did the Maya use for a calendar? What did the Maya use for a calendar before 1790? There were none. There's nothing written in Cortez or Diaz or any of the Catholic friars. As a matter of fact, I actually show one of the friars who was putting together these symbols on a circular placard. Okay. Now the question stems from, because it was in 1790. Now get this. Now you're going to have to follow me. In 1790, underneath ancient Mexico City, Tenochtitlan, they were building a city hall, town hall or something, and they were down in the ground, and they unearthed this 9-foot diameter, 9 feet by 3 feet thick, I believe it was, and that was what we have today as the Mayan calendar. Oh, well, boom, presto, they just knew. When did they know it was a Mayan calendar? All right, now let's go back. What was this? What was it? It was a man-made island out in the middle of a huge lake. So why would the ancient Mexicans go to so much trouble to carve a 24-ton rock slab with all of these insignias and designs on it, and then lower it down into the bottom of this lake, like 9, 10 feet, 12 feet or so, and then pile mud and dirt all over it if it was so sacred, if that was their only calendar. Well, we don't even have pictures or drawings of when they unearthed it. So what is the provenance of the only stone? Now that's it. There's only, let me reiterate, there's only one extant ancient Mayan calendar, so to speak, which is found in Mexico, which is Aztec. It was 9 feet by 3 feet thick, 24 tons, found at the bottom of the lake when they were building when they were putting up a new building, doing some construction for a basement or whatever, I don't know. And they unearthed it. Well, did some priest there go, oh man, that's the Mayan calendar? Because there were none before then. There were none. And that's the only one they've ever found. They have never found another one. So you have all of this enigma, all of this intrigue, all of these lines of thinking and prophecy and creates 2012. And if you and I try to explain the Mayan calendar in the text there, and it's just as confusing. Isn't it nice that we can just look on the wall, we can see what day it is, what month it is, what year it is, instead of having to, okay, now let's see, 100,000, 2 million minus 300,000 plus 27 plus, today is the 14th day of the second week of the fourth month of the, it's just a bunch of bull crap.
It doesn't even sound like it's created by people with the kind of lifespans that we have. It doesn't make sense in that way.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So anyway, the whole deal comes off of this rock that they found. One of them, it sits in the Museum of Mexico City, and that is what they extrapolate the Mayan calendar. And it has nothing to do with the Mayans at all. Period. It never. There still has never been a Mayan calendar found anywhere near the Yucatan or anywhere else in Mexico. Just they don't exist. It doesn't exist. But I show you in the Catholic Encyclopedia where there was a friar there, I can't remember who, it's Sahagan or somebody, actually had circular drawings who was trying to put together some designs and stuff right there. Now, am I saying that the Catholics faked something? Well, it certainly wouldn't be the first time they've been accused or caught red-handed faking things. So that has to do with who was taking over, the conquerors and gaining submission over the people. And they were ruthless, man. They were ruthless. So that's where the Mayan calendar comes from, or the alleged Mayan calendar. And even online, the formulas that you have, they're not the same. You go from one to the next. There's like 10 of them online where you can punch in today's date and see what it is in Mayan glyph. So it's a farce. It is an absolute farce. And anybody who thinks different, watch the video and prove me wrong. I think I say at the end of that video, I dare you to come up with something different. I do that in some of my videos. If I'm crushing someone's paradigm, I'm not leaving them anywhere to go. And they can't go back to the early 1700s. Like I've got these books here. They can't go back to the 1600s and the information there. You're going to have to use the same information that I use to put your solid fact. You can't go online and put something out that's never been in print. All you come up with is pseudo facts, and that's what people love. They love pseudo facts.
Well, yeah, you would think that there would be more records of these. You'd think that there'd even be more than one artifact eventually even found. For nothing to come up in anyone's writings until they unearth this single artifact, and everything is completely based on that from that time forward. It does. Yeah. I mean, that's something that definitely surprises me, and I'm sure it surprises a lot of the listeners out there. It
is a classic bait and switch. I don't know any other way to put it. And then even branching it over into the Yucatan, when it's talking about the Mayan, what they call the Mayan calendar, it's interesting to me, or funny to me, how they explain the Aztec calendar with Mayan hieroglyphs, okay, cursive, and that's cursive Mayan glyphs. Cursive is handwritten. Block Mayan script is when you see an actual photograph of the text of what the wall or the temple says, and that's what you have to go by. That's all people have to go by is pictures. And if they go by the hand-drawn stuff, and it's all a sham. When they teach people how to decipher Mayan glyph, or you go to a class or take an online course or something on how to decipher Mayan hieroglyphs, it's all cursive. It's all handwritten. Doesn't have anything to do with the carvings on the walls and the temples that they have there. I just want to throw that out. And it also goes with some of the other symbology and the sculptures that they have. Like I show you what they call a snake head, and that snake head has got like alligator teeth. It's like an alligator head sticking out of a temple, and they call that a snake head. I'm just saying it don't look anything like a snake head. And that's what I do in some of my videos. I say, yeah, see this? It sure does look like a snake head, doesn't it? And it's obvious that it's not. And so, and then again, when the friars came along and did their recording, their books weren't published until sometimes 200-300 years after they died. And that's when I came up with my my Latin term of morbus libro centesimo post mortem, and of that means that's a Latin phrase that means your books are first published over 100 years after your death, and sometimes several hundred years. So and as you're going back through these books and you're reading how one guy's referring to one book and the book hadn't even been published yet. So what was he reading? What's he quoting from? If the book didn't even exist, how did he know what it said? I'm just saying.
Wow, that is pretty ridiculous. Go ahead.
And even the story though of all the figs, okay, and how the original Mexican flag had the eagle standing on a fig tree, and that Tenochtitlan means eagle on the fig or whatever. And it's a farce because there are no figs. The highest growing fig is what at 4,000 feet ASL, and this is at 7,300 feet. That's 3,000 more feet above sea level, and there ain't no figs anywhere in the world that grow in that altitude. But it sure did have a lot to do with the folklore. So,
well, as long as it fits their agenda, that was the important thing, right? Well, I mean, I guess they were very threatened. Oh, go ahead.
Well, and I try to have a lot of surprises, and there are several surprises. One of them is where I show you there's an archaeologist box at the foot of this hill, and there's like some Star Children heads in it, and the Star Lloyd Pye's Star Child. It was so much hoopla about this skull, and they found these skulls all over Central America and Mexico. They found them everywhere. They found them all over the southwest United States. They have found them everywhere. They found a whole cemetery of them over here in Missouri, of all these skulls of these smaller people with these like flattened out egg-shaped heads. They found them everywhere. And another thing concerning Quetzalcoatl, I try to point out in the video, and I did not show a couple of the circular temples that they have today in the tour guide books. I had 2 or 3 tour guide books from Mexico that I was going to show, but it was just making it too long. But the temples of Quetzalcoatl are all round. Well, National Geographic has them as square. Now, Quetzalcoatl is supposed to be the Jesus Savior, and his temple is right next door to Huitzilopochtli, who, they had blood dripping down it all day, 24/7, So, okay, it was no, I guess, asylum for the temples. But I try to show that the temples don't match. They
you mentioned fire.
Even look anywhere near the same.
I think one you mentioned fire as well was supposed to be depicted. Described as always continually coming out of the one enters. No fire than in the one depicted in the. In at least the representations that some archaeologists have.
Exactly, and that's what happens when you're dealing with pseudo facts. It's hard to get them all in sync, and that's what a lot of these people with National Geographic, Time Warner, Reader's Digest, and then everybody else that writes about the Mayan calendar and Mayan glyph and Quetzalcoatl, they just pick. You can find so many facts or pseudo facts to extrapolate from, and put something together that's completely different. And that's what a lot of people do. They just go online or go to the local bookstore, get a couple of books and that are printed after World War II, and just pretty much just make it up as you go. And people are reading and go, oh, wow, that is so cool. That is so cool. And one pseudo book is The Popol Vuh by Ted Locke. And it's available. You can you can buy it on Amazon, I'm sure. Ted Locke's Popol Vuh. And they say, oh, that's where we find out so much about Quetzalcoatl and Mayan culture. But it's channeled through a dog. Okay, now, I'm trying to be serious telling you this, and you got Truthcatradio, and you got a beautiful cat sitting there. This is channeled through a dog. Now, dogs do not speak in full sentences like that, especially in correct English. I mean, a dog's grammar is quite limited. And here they are channeling this from a dog, and people believe it. And it says it right there in the front of the book that they got this old Mayan priest who was a descendant of a Mayan priest or whatever. And I mean, my gosh, it would be what, 20 generations by now, since the 1500s or so, or however many. 500 years. And oh yeah, and this guy here, they gave him booze, they boozed him up, and he channeled this dog and came up with the Popol Vuh. I'm not making it up. That is the truth. That is the real McCoy. And you have to look back at this, and if you're intellectually driven, you got to look at that with light as a grain of salt and get a laugh over it. It's hilarious. It's nothing serious, but a lot of people put all their beans in that basket.
Wow.
And even Quetzalcoatl, how many names? Okay, you've already come up with Kukulkan, and the Kukulkan had several different spellings, and Quetzalcoatl, and there was Quetzalcoatl or whatever, and then there was another name. Well, how many names did he have? You know, he's got as many names as Barack Obama. So and then and you know, what are you going to do? And but all the predictions come out of the Popol Vuh, and then when I'm going into, and when I show you at the beginning of the video that all of these poems, 2,000 poems that they have in Nahuatl poetry, and I go, Nahuatl poetry. Well, what was this? Did the ancient Aztec, did they have Stoics and philosophers that were learned men that wrote poetry? And that the 2,000 of them were preserved in Aztec language, written Aztec Nahuatl? Well, hell no. It was the dadgum Catholic friars that were the poets and the philosophers, and they were the ones that were writing the poetry in Nahuatl. And they wrote poetry, put Quetzalcoatl's name on it, put Mixcoatl, who's Quetzalcoatl's father, Huitzilopochtli, Quetzalcoatl's brother. They got the whole family tree, and it's just an absolute farce. And I know when you were trying to pronounce that one guy's word, some of these guys are just absolute tongue twisters. I mean, there's guys' names in there that's got like 30, 40 letters in them. And that's when I say, this handsome fellow. I have to just say, hey, this handsome fellow. There's some of these words you can't hardly pronounce them at all.
Right.
I just, and what I'm doing with the video is proving phase to phase to phase that it's all a farce. And that this guy Quetzalcoatl didn't exist, but there's several surprises along the way. And like, for instance, when Bernal Diaz is talking about the giants, well, people that are into giants, they're not going to read Bernal Diaz to find a giant in there. But I just point that out, give them a little bit of leeway to go about this giant that was at least, I mean, at minimum 20 foot tall. Minimum 20, probably about 22 feet tall.
Well, it was basing it on the thigh bone, isn't that right? It was like the bone from the hip to the knee, and that was like about the height of an entire man. That bone alone.
Call it five and a half feet. Okay, I'm just going to say that the Spanish were probably a little shorter back then, but who knows? Who knows? And but yeah, when you calculate that and you kind of work it into a formula, yeah, that guy was over 20 feet tall, and they said, oh yeah, well we'll go get more of them. We got tons of them. So,
Well, yeah, that seems to correspond with, like, the kind of sizes you hear when you hear of the stories of the Nephilim. Who some postulate could have actually existed in physical form and eventually died off and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and if it doesn't fit the Darwinian theory of evolution, well, they just throw it out asunder. But now let's say that 5.5, 6 foot thigh bone is sitting somewhere over in Barcelona or Madrid, somewhere in Spain, and in the basement somewhere. And why doesn't somebody can go and maybe do some research on that? See whatever happened to that bone. Track down the bone that Cortez sent back to King. I can't remember what his name was. So. King Ferdinand, who I can't remember what the king's name was, and so yeah, did these giants exist? Yes, I believe they did. And to me, a giant isn't 10 feet tall. To me, a giant is a woman that's 12 feet tall and a man that's 13 to 14 feet tall. That's where I call giant at.
Right.
I have a fine line. So 20-footer I consider a giant. A 25-foot human to me is a giant. And they had them. I mean, these chroniclers are talking about. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, they have. They were writing about them, and at that time, man, these people weren't just writing up stuff they weren't putting out pseudo facts. They were putting out the truth.
Yeah, certainly, and I mean, yeah, that definitely exceeds any sort of size you could see. Because I mean, yeah, there are people, or we might see, are close to 10 feet, pituitary, disorder. And that sort of thing. But I mean, yeah, definitely when you get to 14, 20 feet, you're not going to see that in our species, basically, in our current DNA.
Right. Right. And another thing, and I dropped it out of the the presentation because it didn't fit, but I thought it was funny, and I'm going to share it with you now. There was one of these old Mexican kings. I believe it was Moctezuma's grandfather that Gemelli Carrere is writing about in 1704, and his wife, his queen's name was Serpent of the Dagger. That's the woman's name, Serpent of the Dagger. Now, can you imagine taking your girlfriend home? Yeah, taking your girlfriend home, introducing you to, hey, Mom, I want you to meet my girlfriend. Oh, hi, what's your name? My name is Serpent of the Dagger. Or Snake of the Knife. How do you get the name? I mean, is that something that you're given when you're first born? I mean, is your mom and dad say, what does she look? Oh, let's name her Snake of the Knife.
Yeah, that definitely all the romance of the Black Widow in that name, definitely.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and there's some stuff in there that I find is absolutely humorous, and I left some humor out of it, and it was a fun video to make, and getting back to some of the more cursive, the cursive Mayan glyph of what they teach you of how to decipher this stuff. The only thing that anybody that deciphers Mayan glyph can decipher is what is handwritten in the cursive script, and one of them is that they put together all these king lists, and the names of these kings are so stupid, like Chief Smoking Squirrel 16, and there's actually an artist rendition in there, get this now, of a squirrel sitting on his hind legs with his tail curved up, and he's got a cigarette in his hand, and that's in a scholarly book. Chief Smoking Squirrel 16, and the squirrel is sitting there with a cigarette in his hand. And I'm like, and people buy that. People buy into it. They buy into it. They go, oh, wow. Or Chief Jaguar 14 or Smoking Jaguar. Or I just love the Chief Smoking Squirrel 16, man. That to me is just absolutely hilarious. And it's the whole thing is so, I don't know if there's anything having to do with Mexican history at all, anywhere, that is true, that we know is true. I love the cuisine. I mean, the cuisine kept going. I mean, the Spaniards surely didn't cook. The Spaniards, when they went in killing everybody, they did not kill the cooks. or the farmer. They didn't kill the cooks or the farmers. They kept them, and it may, you know, and they kept the women too. There's a part there in I think in Bernal Diaz where Moctezuma is talking to Cortez. This is funny too. This is funny. He said, you know, Montezuma. I guess he actually learned how to play chess in his captivity there, and he could not understand how the Spaniards worshipped a virgin. They would set this wooden carving up of the Virgin Mary, and they would worship and he goes, and Moctezuma said, you know, I don't understand. You worship a virgin, but you rape all of our women. And I'm like, you know, how's somebody gonna try to figure that out?
Yeah.
But I do show what I believe are the oldest known actual pictures of Moctezuma in that 1704 book by Gemelli Carreri. I show that, and as far as I know, those pictures are over 300 years old, and I just encourage anyone to find anything. I guess you're going to have to go to the catacombs of the Vatican or the Vatican to see, or even Spain, Barcelona, Madrid, somewhere, to see any pictures that are older of a rendition of Montezuma than what is in that book. And the funny thing is, he's got a beard. He's got a beard.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the beards fascinate me because even today, a lot of Mexicans don't have a beard. Got a little scruff there, you know, and the Native Americans here, the Amerindians, they don't have beards. They don't hardly have any arm hair or chest hair. I've got like 14 on my chest. I've got Lenape blood running through me, and I don't have hardly any chest hair or anything, you know. And so they show Montezuma with a beard, and all the other warriors, they sure do favor Caucasians, which they may have been. I don't know, but there again, what could possibly they have been mixed with? And then we're going to go into land of the rising sun, and that the people who were supposed to come in and conquer the Aztecs, as far as what we were told that Moctezuma believed, came from the direction of the rising sun, or came from where the sun rises. And Japan, for over 2,500 years, has been known as land of the rising sun. And when the emissaries were there during Cortez and Bernal Diaz, the emissaries came in, and what did they do? They bowed 3 times to everybody. Well, who bows today? Who bows today and comes from land of the rising sun? Boom. And I just believe that it was Japanese. That I believe that the whole doggone thing was just a mix-up in grammar. Now try to understand. The languages are kind of Baroque, and one person is speaking to one person in one language, and that's translated into another language. I just figure I think I present a pretty doggone good case that Cortez came from the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, the beard significance as well. I mean, yeah, because I mean, not all cultures, not everyone, is equally inclined to be able to grow a beard. I mean, yeah, that varies greatly, and I mean, yeah, basically all of these stories were fabricated to slowly integrate. It seems. I mean, it sounds like they were very fearful of the native cultures. They wanted to completely destroy them. Certainly not leave alive anyone who preserves the history. No shaman or no one who would serve the purpose of a preserver of the history of the culture. No holy men, mystic, Gnostic types. Like you said, they kept the women, they kept the cooks and the the farmers to do their work.
Yeah, they make yep. And it the Mexican people. I lived and worked in Mexico for almost a year, and the Mexican people, even of today, are extremely superstitious. Okay, And I don't say that in a slanderous way or good or bad. I'm just pointing out the fact that you'll be riding along a highway up along a mountain, and there'll be a shrine carved right into the side of the hill right there, where you can just pull off the road, get out of your car, and go up and lay beads or burn a candle for the Virgin Mary, and they're everywhere.
See, but that's the thing. That's the thing, though. I mean, it's such an extraordinary fusion that just continual. I mean, even in one of the texts even in one of the texts you point out in your video, it points out the Aztec religion was tribal concepts and supernatural the world views of their culture mixed in with any other cultures that they encountered, and because of that, it was highly complex. But I mean, even though they were like, therefore the conquering people with Cortez and whomever, these Jesuit priests who wanted to convert them, they wanted to understand. It says they wanted to understand their ways as much as possible, but so that they could rewrite their history and manipulate them
exactly,
and to blend in a fusion gradually, so that now you have this strange fusion of their old beliefs of various cultures mixed in with, like you mentioned, like the Virgin Mary is so prominent everywhere. I mean, they definitely succeeded in their goal.
Yeah. And exactly, and after two, 3 generations, who the heck knows any different? Who knows any different?
Well, yeah. You don't have the original. You don't have the originals in any form. The religions there, do you?
Right, exactly. After 20 years, and then you have all of these. Then you have the school of the Nahuatl. There was a seminary there that only taught Nahuatl, but they had their own Bible in Nahuatl, and that's what they were teaching out of. Well, it was like 100 years after they were all decimated. Well, so who's going to know what? I mean, they didn't have these books. They had a couple of rebuses that had some kind of similarity concerning their history, but even those were concocted 20, 30 years after the conquest. It didn't make a damn bit of sense. It doesn't. When you start hashing through the crap, it just don't make a whole lot of sense. And like that one Gomorrah. Oh, and Gomorrah, he studied Spanish. He studied the Aztecs. He studied Aztec culture, Aztec literature. And Gomorrah was Hernando Cortez's priest. But it was his priest before he even set out for New Spain. He never even set foot in Mexico. And here he is studying and writing a book about it. Come on, 20, 30 years after you just make it up as you go. And the people don't know that. Your audience is just now learning it, and the people who watch now, that video has got like 2,500 views, and it's over 2 hours long. It's only got 3 thumbs down on it. Only 3 thumbs down, and I like that. I've got like maybe close to 100,000 views on my YouTube channel, and there's just like 30 or 40 thumbs down collectively. There's one I've got that's got like 25 or 2,900 views, and it don't have no thumbs down. So evidently people look at it and they go, you know what, this guy, he's out there, but I believe he's right. And that's kind of what I want. And if I get something wrong, I want to know about it. I just want to know. I want to know.
That's excellent that you're getting such great feedback and responses. I'll say, Harry, we are about that time where we'd like to do a 5-minute break. If you wouldn't mind,
okay.
Maybe you could just like mute yourself for like 5 minutes or so, and then we could be right back for the second hour there.
Okay, you got it. I'll see you on the rebound.
All right, thank you.
You're going to start hearing dogs and birds and cats and all sorts of interesting noises now. But anyway, you're listening to Truthcatradio. That's why we have animals. No talking dogs, but we do have cats. At www.truthcatradio.com, and you are listening to Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary. And in about an hour, 10 p.m. Eastern, is going to be the Stephen E. Kelly Show, and I promise I will give you 2 hours of great monologue. So stay tuned for that. Well, I'll do my best. After that, that'll be done of the live broadcasting until we come back on Monday with Soul to Soul, new show, debut with Dee Marie. I don't really want to go through the whole thing, but suffice it to say, there's quite a few good shows that we've got here. You got to tune in to all these shows, all right? Anyway, but I'm gonna only give you guys a quick break But I just want to remind everybody that we do need your support. If you can help us out, that would be really helpful. There is a button on our main page at www.truthcatradio.com, which says support us, and basically that gives you this address for the PayPal, which is stephenkelly714@gmail.com. Every little penny helps. Now, if you are interested, there is also an active chat room right now. Go to our main page, of course. The button's next to the one that says support us. It says TruthCat Chat. Go register a screen name and go in there and say hi. And I do monitor the chat, so if you have a question, I will be happy to pass it along. If you would like to give Harry a thumbs down, yeah, or come to the aid of Quetzalcoatl, if you're one of those types, please feel free to call us right now at 714-598-3125. And if you're outside the country and you want to use Skype, you got to connect to me at Stephen D. Kelly and send me let me know that you want to be on the show when you send your request. Also, if you are able to, we do need your support on social media, so please like our stuff on Facebook, join our various pages, especially the Truth Cat Radio page. Join it, like it, and help us by sharing the various ads. All right, that is very, very important. If you have any desire to be part of Truth Cat Radio one way or another, either by lending your talents and skills in production, or would you actually like to be a host, please contact me and send me an email at law17gun, that's law17gun at AOL.com. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Richard.
Thank you, Stephen. And welcome back, everyone. And you are listening to Beyond the Matrix. I'm your host, Richard Kary. And today we're speaking once again with Harry Hubbard. We've been discussing Quetzalcoatl and Mayan Calendar, among a lot of related, interesting topics. Hello, Harry. Are you back with us? All right. Harry might be just still taking a little break there, doing whatever he needs to do to refresh. Yeah, like Stephen has just reminded all of you listeners, yeah, please, we can't keep this going without your support. And so if you could definitely help out with whatever amount, you can, even if it's a really small amount, hey, maybe some other time, you'd be able to support with a little more, but don't hesitate, even if it is a little bit, if you want to try to help a little, please, no donation is too small. We can't say that enough. And yeah, we have PayPal accessible through our support page. So it's a really stress-free, hassle-free way to help keep everything going with all the great shows, excellent guests that we've had on, and all of our interesting shows and hosts that have been continually adding to what we have here at Truth Cat Radio. Hello, Harry, are you back with us yet? We'll give Harry another minute or two. It certainly has been interesting. Harry will really go the extra mile. And as I said, I do think the significance of him using a lot of hard copy texts from different publications, various encyclopedias and historical resources, does have an advantage now more as we move so much away from print into the cyber world. It is an increasing danger that just history can be rewritten so much more easily now. And, something could say a published date, a copyright.
Did we lose Harry?
I am not really sure. I don't know. Does it indicate?
Probably muted. He probably forgot how to unmute the microphone, perhaps. Either that or he's ran off to go get something to eat, maybe.
That's what I was thinking, is that maybe he just went an exact 5 minutes.
A long break. Yeah. He doesn't realize when we say 5 minutes, we're yeah.
But
I should hang up on him, huh?
I don't know what do you think of the show tonight, Stephen? I mean, I don't know.
It's it's funny because there's so many people that have made a big deal out of the Mayan calendar and all that, and they've made careers out of that. And it's just I'm kind of would like some of them to listen to the show and see what they have to say about that. But I kind of believe it that they would fabricate all this stuff that seems so typical.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. This is certainly an area that I haven't ever really focused on whatsoever. But I mean, I did do some when I was trying to understand everything, the nature of the world. I had to go back and look at ancient history, but I was really kind of focused on Mesopotamia because the Americas and Africa and what have you was primarily hunter-gatherer. There wasn't really a whole lot going on. Oh, Harry's back.
I'm here.
Oh, hey, Harry. Glad we didn't lose you there.
We're going to hang up on.
I had to.
I was already.
I had to throw a log on the fire.
Is that a euphemism?
Throw a log on the fire.
That's a euphemism. Is that like watering the horse or something? No. Okay.
No, it's actually I had to put some logs in. So.
Hey, Stephen.
I didn't run over.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, Stephen. Well, no. While we have you here for a moment, is there any additional questions that you have for Harry on the like what he's looked into on the Mayan calendar?
Well, I was a little concerned when he was talking about his satanic encyclopedia, but the Catholic encyclopedia. I have an Encyclopedia Britannica from 1800s. It's kind of fun, pre-Civil War.
Oh, nice.
I love there's so much math. People were so much smarter back then. Oh my God.
You got a point there. I had an 8th grade mathematics book from the mid 1800s, 8th grade, and it was trigonometry and calculus. Unbelievable. There's
a section, like if you go into like the moon, you look at what they've written about the moon. There's no space telescope, there's no NASA, there's none of this, but there's massive amounts of calculations and theorems and what have you. It's just incredible.
Oh yeah, and what amazes me about the older encyclopedias is not only what is there, but is what is not there, what is not recorded. It's just you go start looking back into stuff and you go, it's not there. Where did it go? I guess it came later. It's true. It's true.
But Harry,
but I guess I missed something.
To throw it into all perspective, I grew up. I'm a child of the '60s. I grew up, in the '70s and what have you. But we had what is the big encyclopedia that they have in the U.S. World Book Encyclopedia. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
That's and then you had Britannica and you have World Book. Well, I remember in the '70s, one of the big things that they were pushing, one of the big lies they were pushing, was manganese nodules on the ocean floor. Do you remember that?
Very vaguely.
Yeah. Remember
a few things.
Big vacuums to suck up the manganese nodules on the ocean floor, and this was the future. And it turned out that entire propaganda campaign was just a cover so that they could retrieve a Russian submarine.
Right. It was Howard Hughes was involved.
Yeah, Howard Hughes and the Glomar Explorer. And they indoctrinated a whole generation of people, of idiots, to back this farce up so they could steal a damn submarine off the ocean bottom.
I think they got it too, or half of it.
I
think it broke in half when they were bringing it up.
They did. They broke in half, but they did recover a big portion of it. They released film of them having a funeral at sea in the boat, in the hull of the boat, where they basically returned the corpses back to the sea. But they, to this day, that incident is still one of the most highly classified, top secret items there is.
Wow. Yeah. And now another thing is here in America, you have an affinity with Amerindians about the 4 directions. And the 4 directions, which got me as far as the Mexicans were concerned, or Tenochtitlan in and around the Mexican plateau there in the valley, the Mexican valley, that their 4 directions were up, and down, forwards, and backwards, whichever way you were looking. That was their 4 directions: up, down, forwards, backwards. So if you turned, forward is a different way. I just kind of thought I thought it was cute, you know. And there's so many other things that you come across that are just absolutely cute. And I try to document as many of them as I can.
So let me ask a sort of related question. Stephen, you're still here with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm muting. I'm getting ready to turn my back on you for the next hour. Go ahead. Yeah, I got to relax before my show, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah. Just before you go, if for both of you gentlemen's response on this, I mean, regarding the pyramids in both Mexico and in Egypt and elsewhere, I've heard some people explaining that the alignment of all of them collectively on the globe has significance, and that it could only be appreciated from someone who would at least would have flight, if not space travel capability. I mean, is this related to the information that you've uncovered, perhaps, I don't know, related to scalar in any way, or I don't know. Have either of you heard anything about the significance?
Well, I agree. I do. I know. I'll let your guest really do this, and I'll just say something real quick.
I was going to hear your take on it, Steve.
Okay, Harry,
when I look at it,
I'll just say it real quick. We know that the Great Pyramid in Giza is essentially a big orgone device, a big energy collector. We know that there are aquifers underneath, and it's very much an alchemy device, and there is energy being pulled in and put out, and it could be doing all sorts of things, from energizing the land to purifying the water, whatever. But we do know that Tesla's system that he was building at Walden Cliff worked on very similar principles. There were deep bores that went down into an aquifer that he was tapping. So I believe that there's still channels and waterworks underneath the Great Pyramids that we have yet to really understand. And I suspect that all of these pyramids that all seem to be on similar parallels and what have you, corresponding with stars and what have you, they definitely do seem to be an energetic antenna of sorts, or a massive orgone device, if you will.
Okay. All right, great. Well, yeah. Well, Stephen, I'll let you get to what you need to before your show.
Well, I've got to hear what Harry has to say about that. Harry, come on, right?
Yeah, please, Harry.
In a centralized area, yes, I believe that the temples, etc., can be aligned with certain celestial bodies or celestial events. But as far as worldwide temples on the ley grids and such, I just don't get it. I don't. You have to have not only a strong imagination, but you have to have a lot of leeway within that to kind of fit everything in. It just doesn't appear when maybe my ruler's crooked. Okay, maybe my ruler is crooked. I'm just saying. And even with over time, how these people, I just can't see that much commerce and trade going back and forth. Even on the grandiose scale. But a funny thing, though, to me is, or strange, is that a lot when Cortez and Bernal Diaz went into Tenochtitlan, I'm not so sure that there was a lot of constant building still going on. And now the ancient Mexicans, obviously they had engineers, they had brilliant engineers, but had they all died off? Had they all been conquered or sacrificed? Where did they go? What happened to all the engineers? If you have all of these cities that are just massive, big buildings and tremendous causeways and such, well, we know that it slips me right now. The Alley of the Dead, just outside Mexico City. Not Tiwanaku, Tinacoco. It's just up on the northwest of the. It's where the huge Teotihuacan, I think, is what it is. Okay, Teotihuacan, where that is. The Mexicans at that time, it was not occupied. It was not occupied. So what happened to the engineers? Were they all decimated in war? Because usually when you have engineers that can build buildings and causeways and these mighty aquifers and stuff that are ready to engineer these, they have accomplished that through war engines or machines of war. They have devised something to be able to kill their adversary or put their adversary down or to flight first before they're able to get to the next step of civilization. So why didn't the ancient Mexicans have any elements of or tactics of war or besieging? It was all just clubs and knives and beating people up, basically just thuggery. They didn't have any clever machines. Their clever machine was their island that they thought that they could protect, by closing off the causeways, which they did to a degree, but it still leaves you vulnerable to someone who has superior weapons, which the Spanish did have. So I'm just wondering, like, what happened to the engineers? How come? And we know that Cortez would have never been able to have conquered Mexico without the assistance of 600,000 Mexicans, because Montezuma ruled with such an iron thumb that or iron hand that they were all against him. So but I don't know. I'm just wondering what happened to all these engineers. I'm just wondering.
It is strange to see how the technology could be lost from the societies that built any of these pyramids around the globe, really, to the degree that it has. I mean, because they're still to this day fascinated by a lot of the architecture. I know that for a fact. And then Stephen mentions these aqueducts in addition, and just even the celestial alignments. A lot of these things. Well, a lot of people have suggested, they have whole programs now dedicated to this, this theory of ancient aliens, that there was some other species of separate DNA that could have, been here in the past and for whatever reason are no longer with us. I don't know. Have you ever entertained any of those theories, Harry, that something outside of our species contributed to this ancient technology?
It's quite possible. We've got a lot of tablets from this tomb that show direct and indirect contact with extraterrestrials, or if you want to call them that, and to what degree they ever did this or that, I don't know, and I don't know if we'll ever know. It becomes an enigma, and you can pretty much make it up as you go unless you've got hardcore proof of anything. And but I believe there's enough evidence to suggest that we are being visited in modern times, and that ancient man had been visited also. Just too many documented stories that are just absolutely fantastic. Just so far out in left field. And just no way to describe it. And ancient man had a certain way of describing things. Let's say, for instance, if ancient man was going to describe a car, he would say, it is a horse that you sit inside, and it has round feet, and when it makes a loud noise when you take off fast or when he stops slow, and instead of drinking water, he drinks naphtha. They very Baroque, very, very clever descriptions of certain things. If a Roman soldier were to come here today in today's time and spend a day or two here and then go back into ancient times, how would he describe it? I often wonder about that. I'm just weird about stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I could entertain, at least I myself could entertain the suggestion that Stephen was supporting, regarding, Tesla technology, that the pyramids can have an antenna-like function for scalar waves. I've had a guest on the show last week who was mentioning, that crystals and pyramids, both have this antenna-like property for scalar. And I know scalar, it's directly related to Tesla technology. It's one way to describe, the actual, energy that's being created. You've been a part of the Tesla Coil Builders Association, I know, Harry. But but I don't know. Have you ever heard of? Well, and you also have a large stone collection. But I mean, have you ever heard of the significances related to crystals with the, with this sort of energy?
Well, to me, one of the most fascinating things there is a crystal radio. It's so simple, and I don't think there's anybody that can tell you why it works. We don't know why, but we know it does, and it operates off a quartz crystal, and it just pulls electricity out of there. Now, there was an experimenter I knew. He died years ago. I think he died in 2005. Robert Ghostwolf. And he had a lab, him and another guy had a lab down in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And they had been working on a machine where it had arms on it, and they had taken these quartz crystals and wrapped them up in copper coils. And they had them set, at a certain distance to interact with each other. And they got finished, and it was real late at night. So they said, we'll pick up on the experiment first thing in the morning. Okay. Well, then they came back the next morning and the crystals were gone.
Okay.
I mean, there was nobody in their shop. There was nobody that broke into the shop. There was, their lab, there was nobody in there. Well, what happened to the crystals? Where'd they go? Vanished. They vanished. But I mean, there's plenty of stuff sitting around, computers, this and that. I mean, if somebody came in to rob, why would they just take the crystals and leave the copper?
Yeah.
Or for whatever. And people say, well, Harry, do you give any credit to quartz crystals or whatever? So I don't know, but I do know this: that when I was a kid, I found a quartz crystal in a creek there in North Georgia, and I kept it with me. I kept that thing in my pocket every day for years. So maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I think I've still got it around here somewhere. And but I had quartz crystals. And I carried them in my pocket. My dad was a rock hound. That's how I got into minerals.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was really impressed with, you have in your videos up on YouTube, presentations of your stone collection. Yeah, it is quite impressive. How long have you been collecting those?
One of my oldest pieces, I know I got it when I was in second grade. Which is 7 years old, 8 years old, or something like that.
Okay. All right,
and
wow.
And I was always into. My father he started out with minerals, and my father was one of the first rock hounds. They were called rock hounds back then. Now today we're called mineralogists. But he was one of the first to get into the fluorescent and phosphorescent stones. And that's what I took it into, because I'm just fascinated with phosphorescent and fluorescent stones. And that's what my collection is. And it's a world-class collection, I might add.
Nice. Excellent. Well, yeah, anyone who's interested in that can check out your YouTube site. We have a link to your YouTube site, but they can type in Harry Hubbard, and they shouldn't have any problem finding your YouTube channel there. And of course, your ancient map collection is amazing. If they do go to your channel, I don't know. Is there anything you'd like to mention regarding your study of these maps? It seems like you can get a lot of information that way. The same as I mentioned with the hard copy books, right?
Yeah, I sold off most. I gave some of my dear friends a map or two through the years, because I mean, these things are huge, and I couldn't just travel with it. When I started traveling in the mid 90s, my map collection, everything was stuffed in an attic in Florida, and it was like coming up on spring. I said, well, heck, it's hot in spring. I got to do something with them. So I had to, you're talking between cases and all, 200 plus pounds of maps, mounted maps.
Wow.
And it's all fragile glass. So I started selling things. And when I moved up here to Illinois in 2002, to this cabin out in the middle of nowhere, I started, I was limited in the space I could store things, but I started to pull everything from Tennessee, from Georgia, from Florida up to Illinois. Then is when I started pulling in all my books and all of my stuff, and trying to find and build places to accommodate them, or just ways to store them without them getting nasty. and I sold off a bunch of maps, and I sold them to Barry Rudiman, who is a fundamental player in the antique map industry. He has, as far as I'm concerned, he's the best. If he's not the best, I don't know anybody better, but he's very fair. And some of those maps might actually still be on, in his catalog. But I did find last summer 2 other prints from Athanasius Kircher, who was a Catholic Jesuit. And after I finish some shoots that I'm working on, I'm going to be in a feature film, and I'm going to be talking about CERN and bending of time and such, things like that, and covering some other subjects too. And after I get finished with those shoots, I'm going to sell those. And because I mean, you got a piece of paper that's worth thousands of dollars. And I live here, out in the middle of nowhere. And, if it burned up or a tornado came and just smashed, that's what I was worried about, is tornadoes. I got a book from 1743 that I want to sell. And it has the chance of how to raise the dead. And it's an alchemy hermetic book, Secrets of the Hermetic Sciences. All this alchemy, formulas and stuff, such whatever, 1743. Well, I want to sell it. It's extremely esoteric, but you got to know the Latin, Greek, and Hebrew to get through it. I mean, it's not like it's written in English, But if something were to happen to it, boom, it's gone, So anyway, I'm just saying it. And even my 1704 books, I have thought several times about selling them. I've seen them online for sale years ago for $15,000-$20,000 for the set. I just can't, because I read them. I mean, it's a little hard to read that super old English from the early 1700s, late 1600s, but there's so much good information in there that is just totally different from what you see today.
Right, and yeah, just having that information from whatever year it was printed in its unaltered form, that definitely has more and more significance as time rolls on with technology.
That's true, but I still have my ancient coin collection, and I still do. I've done 2 videos on ancient coins. I might, if I get a wild hair, do a couple of more, because I can knock those right out. I mean, that's something I really know a lot about, that I followed for years and years. Well, I guess just about everything I do, the minerals, I've followed that since first, second grade. And, a lot of the stuff that I just didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I want to go collect rocks. I never did that. I just always had collections. And so that's just how my life has been. It's been really twisted in that respect of what interested me at the time of an age, and even music, such as that is, and how I got involved heavily producing music and producing band, recording engineer. That's what I am by trade, a recording engineer. But I do so many other things too, to try to keep things going and stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
And
I did want to ask you, before we, well, I mean, we have quite a little bit of time, about a half hour left, but I definitely wanted to ask you about one of the recent videos you uploaded, the phantom explosions, and I thought maybe you could share some of that with the listeners here.
Well, it is something that truly happened. And what happened is at 7:30 on the 21st of December, my wife and I were sitting here. We were watching, I think, Wild Wild West or something off the internet. We don't watch TV anymore, and we're sitting here and I had the fire going. And when our fire is going, and it's kind of warm outside, we have to have the doors open. I know it sounds weird, but the door was open, and we heard these blasts. And then there was like a 5-second, but as soon as I heard it, because I knew the direction, I mean, in here in the cabin, you can tell what direction something goes off in, And as soon as I heard it, I ran out and ran to the back of my shed, my shop. And then about the time I got there, about 5 seconds later, after the first initial 2 or 3 pops, it was a pop. The first 2 or 3 were pop, pop, pop. Like, holy crap, because I know there's nothing there. There's nothing there but a vast prairie bottom. So I ran outside, and then all of a sudden it sounded like a war zone. Kaboom, boom, bow, 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 pew, pew. It went on for about 25 seconds. And I didn't see any light. There was no glow. I mean, you can see for miles here. There was no glow out in that field. There was nothing. Nobody lived out there for miles. There's like 3,000-4,000 acres out there where there's nobody. And as soon as it quit, I hopped in my minivan and I started driving around the neighborhood. I started driving around the circuit looking for wildfires. I figured something like that must have created a fire somewhere, because I mean, it wasn't super dry, but but it was dry, and there was no fire. So after the next day or two, I had to work, and for anybody who wonders what I do, I install satellite internet services to people that live like me out in the middle of stupid nowhere. I install internet service with satellite systems, and Viasat, the best. So anyway, after, let's see, a couple of days, I started going around and asking my neighbors if they had heard it. And I interviewed like 35, I actually ended up being like 38 people. Most of the people that I interviewed were not home at the time. It was a Wednesday evening, and they were at some Christmas function at some church somewhere. So out of the people that were home, 11 people heard it. The farthest away were 2 people 1.5 miles away, at least 1.5 miles, a little over 1.5 miles away. And people on the other side of the river heard it. And this one woman, she was so cute. She goes, I heard it. And she goes, but don't nobody know what it is. And I said, well, who else did you talk to that heard it? She goes, I ain't saying nothing. I said, okay, that's fine. But several people heard it. And I guess that, her husband, he couldn't hear it because he's deaf. And there were three people I interviewed that actually were deaf. I mean, elderly, real hard of hearing. And a lot of people, some people were on vacation, but it was just ironic that everybody heard it from the same direction, and they heard it exactly like me and Noah Schwartz heard it. And I interviewed this guy. He's an Amish guy, and he lives south of me. And I've known him for years. I've known all his kids since they were babies, and now his babies are grown up and got their own babies, And it was, and I didn't get this one lady and her daughter, but their testimony was just incredible because they're very well spoken. Both of them they're wonderful people. And I just wish I'd had a recorder the first time I went there to ask them if they'd heard it, because their window was open in their living room. Okay. So so other people, even though it was a very mild evening, and if you had the wood stove going, you kind of wanted to have your doors or your windows cracked. See what I'm saying? And they heard it just exactly. They live just south of Noah. And I wish I could have gotten them, gotten a recording of them. But and when I went back, she said, no, I don't want to be part of the Harry Hubbard YouTube channel. I think is what she kind of said. Go, okay, fine, that's okay. which she would have, and because I mean, I've known her for 20 years, but the thing is that's their prerogative. They don't want to. And there was a couple of other ladies that I would have liked to have recorded. One lady was sick, and the 2 other ladies, they didn't want to go on record either. So now I know to go when I'm going somewhere, take the camera with you, and the first time, and because it was just great what they had told me, and like I say, there nobody went in and nobody went out into that vast area. Noah lives on the south end, I live on the north end, and the only thing on the other side is a river. Okay, and that's it. I mean, and vast forest, and nobody was there. And there was no paper, there was no debris, there was no anything. And people say, oh, was it earthquake? Right. No, it couldn't have been earthquake because none of our houses shook. I thought when I heard it, so man, if I was just 100, 200, 300 feet closer, my house would have shook. But Noah said his place didn't shake. So how can you have these super loud explosions that are heard over 1.5 miles away and doesn't shake?
And like you said, no paper or debris, so that means it's no firework type of explosion that would rule that out. You mentioned,
and even a cannon. I've got neighbors that have cannons. My neighbors have cannons. Okay, I mean most people's neighbors got rifles and shotguns. My neighbors have cannons. Several of my neighbors have cannons, and when they blow them suckers off, that's kind of what it sounded like. It either sounded like a cannon or TNT, dynamite. It sounded like dynamite. But and I would have thought that those, I mean, the explosions sounded to me like just not too far away, which they weren't. I mean, if we try, after I triangulated it, it was right there in Noah's backyard. That's where it was, and he was scared. He said, "I don't know if somebody's trying to blow me up."
Oh, interesting. So yeah, no, just no one had any theories on it, but yeah, you
I'm
couldn't.
probably the only video producer anywhere in this area that has actually gotten 2 Amish guys on record. You know.
Well, now that is an accomplishment, and no, it's great.
Thank you.
And let me see. I don't know. We have a little bit time left still. I don't know what other topics you might be up for getting into here.
Well,
you'd like to talk about any of the other videos you put up recently? Anything related to content from those, perhaps, or?
I'm working now on not let me think of how to put this. Okay, I'm working on the feature film for a man down south, and a producer down south, and I'm working on a like a 6-minute trailer for the channel. Okay, for the channel, and other than that, I've got 3 long videos that are old. Let's see, 1, 2, 2. One of them is our very first video concerning this tomb stuff. It's called Tomb Tape 3, and it's 2 hours long, and I'm hoping to get it online. It is a classic. It shows decipherments, many decipherments that aren't really shown anywhere else, and that we never did again, and shows a lot of history. And then I've got 2 other presentations from a conference I did in Connecticut several years ago, and all of those are going to be pay-per-view. And people ask, well, what can we do to support you? Just watch the pay-per-views. There's one on the Harry channel called Cultures in Conflict, and it is a stupendous video. The people that have watched it, they really like it. I don't know what the price of it is, but it goes into all of the Cultures in Conflict is all about the Anasazi, Sanagua, Hohokam, and Mogollon cultures of Mexico, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and branching over into Utah, and different places, some places in close to Wyoming, but it centers in on the Anasazi or Southwest cultures, and I show some huge sites that are not in any of the books, and they will never be in any of the books. And the reason for that is because when you put these two, when you put Chevelon and Chevis Pass in the mix, none of it makes any sense. So that's what they do. They extrapolate. If all these cultures and these buildings, these ancient buildings out in the Southwest, when they've got their theories and their bull crap going on, okay, they say this, they say that, and some of it was just absolutely horrendous. When you start looking at it and comparing, it's just absolutely moronic. But I've tried to put it, and I could do a sequel to Cultures in Conflict, because I've actually found 2 more of my Grand Canyon Trails books from the 50s and 60s. See, my father had some Grand Canyon Trail books, and then I bought some more when I was out in Arizona. And you've heard so much about the Egyptian city that they found embedded in one of the caves of the Grand Canyon. Well, these trail books I had, they showed you exactly how to get there. All these people, well, where was it? Where was it? Where was it? Well, it was obvious. When you start looking at the USGS maps, and you look at the Marble Canyon, and then with these trail books I had, and then you see where the names had changed on some of the creeks and some of the canyons. They changed the names in the 60s, and because the trail books had everybody going down in there, people getting hurt, trashing out the place, so they closed it off. And it's a really good video, and I show you pictures of the actual Egyptian cave in the Grand Canyon. I show you pictures of it, and from old books. I mean, it's not so much a secret. If you can go to a used bookstore and buy a book, color printed book from the 1940s, it's going to have it in there. They all do. So that's what gets me is a lot of people put so much mystery into stuff. Where if they just just put their fat nose in front of a book, they're going to see it right there, So. But I'm working on getting those others online, and I don't right now. I don't have anything new that I'm working on. I've got 20 ideas, at least 20 ideas for new videos, but I don't have anything on the drawing board just right now, right yet. Because I'm just still trying to catch up. I need to catch up with these 3 oldies that are great that still need to go online, and that's what I got to do. And then once I get those online, then I'll be pursuing. I have one video I want to do called FU. FU. The letter F and the letter U. And what it's about all the people through history whose names were spelled F-U-X, F-U-C-H-S, F-F-O-C-H-F. You wouldn't believe it. It's going to be hilarious, but it's going to be serious. It's going to, and then I'm going to show you the pronunciations of it. It's just a riot. It's absolute riot. When I think about it, I laugh. And that's the problem. Sometimes when I'm doing shoots on some of my videos, what was the one that was real hard? Avid and spirit cooking. When I did spirit cooking, it was hard for me to laugh, to keep from laughing. I laughed every take that I did. See, what I do is when I'm doing my videos, I'll do several shoots of the same scene, and so that I can pull the best one. And and sometimes I just snotted myself laughing, and I ruined the whole take. But I had some good stuff in there before I snotted myself. So, I've got some more action videos planned where I'm going out in the field. Now this phantom explosions, it just came out of nowhere. It just came out of nowhere. I did not plan to do that. I was just sitting here one night, heard all these blasts, heard a war zone, and that's what the Amish kid said. He goes, "It sounded like a war zone," and so I put that video together and dedicated to the legacy of Charles Fort, because he also wrote about phantom explosions. He wrote about them extensively from all over the place. And then I did Allahu Akbar. Now see, my buddy Paul, my colleague Paul Shafranca, I'm sitting there trying to find a YouTube hit. I'm trying to make a YouTube hit, I'm trying to make a YouTube hit. And he goes, Harry, your stuff will never be a hit on YouTube. He goes, it's just too deep, too intellectual. He goes, he's so polite, and he's calm. He goes, if you want a YouTube hit, you're going to have to do something really stupid, crazy with your cats or your dog or something. You're going to have to do something really crazy. And I said, well, my cat's name Allahu Akbar. So I put the video together, Allahu Akbar. It's a lot different when you're calling your cat. But anyway, it hasn't gone viral or anything, but it is a cute video. I don't know if you got a chance to check that one out or not, but it's a cute video. I'll just keep talking then.
Oh, no. Did you want to describe a little from the other recent videos you mentioned? Like Avde Vitas, it's a Mason thing.
Avde Vitataki, which means
Avde Vitataki.
See. Avde Vitataki, which is a Latin term that means see, hear, and be silent. And I just touch a little bit. Okay, the Avde Vitataki was actually the first part of spirit cooking, or actually it's not called spirit cooking on the video. It's called Into the Maw of the Great Abyss. And the maw, into the maw is an old Teutonic word for the belly, into the stomach of the abyss, the great abyss. And that's where I take
I thought
viewer
a maw was like
in the
a
spirit
mouth.
cooking.
I thought the maw was like a mouth.
No, maw is the stomach, the belly, the bottom, the belly, and MAW. So anyway, that's what I do is I take the viewer down into the depths of evil, and then just show them right there what it is. Well, the Avde Vitataki was actually the first part of that, but I had to cut so much. I mean, that spirit cooking was. I bet I cut 50 files that I was going to show. It would have been 4 hours long, and then I separated it from the Avde Vitataki, which is I think like an hour long. or a little less, and to show. And I put that, I joined a bunch of Freemason Facebook sites, and I joined I joined groups with the sole intent of being kicked out and thrown out as soon as possible. Okay, because I just want to just put up some stuff in there. If I get these, oh, please join our group, please join our group, I go ahead and join, and I get kicked out the next week, which is fine. That's what I'm trying to do. But I put it in on some Mason sites, and I dedicated it to Freemasons all over the world. And what it is, it shows how the people who invented Freemasonry, they left themselves a back door on the oath. And that's all you got to do is a quote the Col Nadre, and it's funny. There's some parts in that video that's just absolutely hilarious. You know, it is taking, and that's one thing my colleague Paul mentions. He goes, how can you take a subject that is so dead serious and just turn it into a three-ring circus? I don't understand how you do it, but he says he accuses me of doing it quite well, oftentimes. So you know, it is what it is. And it's dedicated to Freemasons, and it's for Freemasons, and for anybody else though that's thinking about it. But I had a couple of people in mind when I put that together, but it was something I could have done a long time ago. I just didn't know how to present it, but I had all the information. And I've done other videos, Shamu, Harry, and the killer whales. That goes into
Harry, that video though. Also, I think has a brilliant way of pointing out some key points regarding Zionism for people who aren't very familiar. You know, because I mean, you know, you even mentioned in it repeatedly how, you know, the video is not trying to be about the protocols, and that it's focused on like a kind of an out, a loophole, if you will, for potentially for Masons, but. I mean, you do also point out how much, you know, it's clear, you know, and going into some of the protocols, you know, just how much it has infiltrated so much, including, you know, a large part of the sects of the Masons that exist out there. And you know, I don't know. I actually did find that video quite interesting. You shouldn't rule out actually doing a video where you actually do make it about the protocols. What do you think?
It would, to me, it would be boring. I think the most interesting parts of the protocols I covered in that video, and some of the more hilarious points. I think that. If somebody were to check them out for themselves, which I'd leave open, they can go and anybody can go and download the protocols. They're going to see how our education system here in America and other places got manipulated. They can see why there is such a liberal agenda with our judges. How come they are it seems like a concerted effort to just drive society down into the sewage pit, and even though these guys, like in Freemasonry, even though they're good people and they're conservative, well, to me, if I was going in front of a judge, I would ask, you know, is this judge a Freemason? If he is a Freemason, can me, Harry Hubbard, can I get a free trial, a fair trial? Can I get a fair trial? Oh, well, well, listen, I'm not a Freemason. Okay, now the question, it's a loaded question, because if he recuses himself, and said, no, I have to recuse myself because Harry's got a point. He does not want a Freemason to sit on the bench during his trial, which, God forbid, if I ever had to go to court. But what does that mean on the back end side? It means anybody that's in front of him that is a Freemason is going to get special privilege, doesn't it? And so you see how that works. It's a loaded question. Are you a Freemason? If he says yes, and then he's going to go on with the trial, that means that everybody who comes in his court that's Freemasons gets a free pass.
Well, I think it's,
and he's admitting it.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of the text you point out is also significant in that it highlights a lot of the confirmations of infiltration from the Zionists. Otherwise, you know, you wouldn't have had so many sects of Freemasons that were specifically trying to keep Jewish members out. For example, I mean, you know, like, you know, it mentions like gradually most of those rules were stopped, and gradually in different areas, like it mentions in France, after the revolution, like Jewish Masons had no problem in the French, sects of the Masons. So I mean, that kind of points to potential, cultural Marxism from the Zionists behind the French Revolution.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
anyway.
true. And I show you in the Encyclopedia Judaica where there are actually passages in Judaica that are extremely anti-Semitic. So, I mean, where are these guys coming from?
Mhm.
And
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be without reason. The point is, it wouldn't be without good reason for all these groups to, all these different sects to start, well, the only thing they could do was to try to exclude Jewish members, to try to, contain what they definitely saw was, an attempt at a coup, basically.
Well, I show, and it's not hard to see that in Shamu, Harry, and the Killer Whales, and also in Avid Taki, where a lot of the Freemasonry symbolism comes from straight out of the Quran, Arab, Islam, Muslim religion, and a lot of them don't even realize it. And it's the same thing with the KKK.
It seems to confirm that as of today, by this point, Zionism has infiltrated like all sects of the Freemasons. I mean, that's pretty much what it seems to imply, that gradually that has happened.
I kind of want to say that I don't think it's infiltrated. I think it was created specifically by the Zionists just to control the people that they could. I don't think that there was infiltration. I think it was set up, designed, and implemented, created just for that specific purpose, to keep good men occupied and to break up marriages when they wanted to, put people into powerful places whenever they wanted to, elevate someone's children to whatever degree whenever they wanted to, on and on and on. It was a farce to begin with. Now in Shamu, Harry, and the Killer Whales, but see, this is the thing, like the Shriners, okay, you have Arab, okay, in the shrine you wear the fez, the hat, and all of this is just total Islamic influence, and now people are starting to see it. You know what I'm saying? Islam, as it is infiltrating and gaining more ground, people are starting to whoa, wait a minute, what is this? And it's the same thing with the KKK and all the symbolism that they use out of the Quran themselves. Well, I'm sure that there's nobody in the KKK that's that's into the Islamist thing or a Muslim. But here it is, a lot of their symbology totally interrelates with it right there.
Well, these are groups I'd say that are, coaxed into existence by, various agencies and interests. I mean, I really don't think that a lot of these are genuine, grassroots groups. I think that they're intentional, controlled opposition. They might not be aware of the fact that they're being led, but I mean, just like a lot of these neo-Nazi groups you'll see out there in that, and I mean, these days they're not genuine representations. Even the new Black Panther Party, as opposed to the original Black Panther Party, you know what I mean? It was completely created to create chaos and to create more, civil unrest rather than peace. So I mean.
And that's how come my videos do not have any kind of anti-Semitic tone to them, is because most Jews of today, they have never seen. I've never met a Jew that has ever don't even know what Encyclopedia Judaica is. They don't know, and it's all new to them too. And you can't dislike or actually like or dislike anybody, form an opinion on someone's ancestors. You have to take that person for face value in modern day times. And so, because I'm sure that my ancestors did something in the past that I would not be happy of. But what we have to realize in today's time is that our ancestors lived long enough to make us here in this day and time. Your ancestors, Stephen's ancestors, my ancestors, they all lived enough to pass their seed down the line to create a better world for the next generation. And I hope that continues. I hope and pray that continues.
Right. Yes, certainly, certainly.
They fought in wars. They were survivors.
Yes. Well, it's always been a pleasure having you on, Harry. And good luck on the videos you've described you're working on currently. Yeah, we'll definitely look forward to having you on again if you'd like to down the line.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. You have a good evening, sir.
You too. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. All right. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. That was Harry Hubbard, and this has been Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary. Stay tuned. Up next is the Stephen D. Kelly Show with your host, Stephen D. Kelly. Until next time, I'll be signing out. All right, everyone. Stick around. As I said, after a brief intermission, Stephen will be on. Please donate if you can. And our support page does have PayPal. Any little bit helps, so please do what you can do to support us. Okay, everyone. I'll talk to you again next week. Thank you for listening, everyone out there. All right, have a good evening. Transcend the construct. Regards.